How did she overcome suicidal depression? What was it like? How did she overcome negative thoughts and behavior patterns? How did she overthrow unworthiness and rewrite the not good enough script that keeps you playing small? And how did she use art therapy? Morgan Beard will touch on this and so much more. Managing depression and anxiety since 13 has made personal development a non-negotiable for her, and that will be very contagious for everyone listening on. Morgan Beard has dedicated her life to using creativity to heal and empower. She received her BA in Visual and Media Studies from Duke University in 2012 and her MPS in Art Therapy from the School of Visual Arts in New York City in 2017. As an art therapist in New York, she worked in a public elementary school, an adult inpatient psychiatric unit, and a 183-bed nursing home. Her life came to a screeching halt after burning out in the pursuit of licensure and entering another major depressive episode. Many of you listening on, I'm sure, can relate to overloading yourselves. I certainly can. Nothing good comes from it. But focused for the first time on her happiness, Morgan moved across the country to start over in LA. She began building her life coaching business, working with individuals to create holistically fulfilling lives and families to increase communication and harmony. This gave her the confidence to embrace her earliest passion for singing and make music to help people move. She's currently working on her debut pop EP, Elemental, set to release in 2022. So stay tuned for a great episode. But before we introduce her, let's start with an opening question. What does mental health mean to you?
So, mental health, it's a broad topic in the same way that physical health is a broad topic. Physical health can include like your digestive system, your sleep, all these different behaviors that kind of equal balance and general well-being. And mental health is the same way. It's all these different factors, which also include physical health. There's all these different tie-ins, and one of the most kind of exciting but also scary things about mental health is that it can fluctuate so much based on all these different factors in our lives, like what's going on socially, what's going on in our bodies, what's going on with our emotions. And what's exciting about that is that there are then many angles with which you can impact your mental health and try to find, again, sort of that balance. It's not about waking up every day, jumping out of the covers, being like, I'm ecstatic all the time. It's about balance and being able to kind of roll with the punches of stressors and triggers and all these things that can throw us for a loop.
Very well said there. We have to acknowledge that there are a lot of factors that go into our mental health, our social situation for that day, that week, maybe our workload for that week. And then you also mentioned triggers. I think it's very important. And I try to do so as well as I get a little older. Stay away from things that you think are going to trigger you. It's easier said than done, but everybody has different areas that bother them. Everyone finds themselves excelling in different areas. We are all unique. But hopefully on this show, we can help break the mental health stigma that we all do unfortunately share. Thank you for sharing that, Morgan. And everyone listening on, it is once again time to talk all things mental health. This is a mental health break, and I am your host, Vincent A. Lancy. If you have checked out my mental health books, please let me know. We have Mental Health Week and Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health, all available on Amazon. To learn more about me, you can just search at Vincent A. Lancy on all social media platforms or YouTube. I began focusing on my mental health after suffering from a traumatic brain injury, and you will learn today's guest why in just a few moments relating to mental health advocacy. Like Morgan, each week since 2020, right in the beginning in January, I've had the pleasure of sitting down with a mental health advocate or professional from around the world to help you on your journey, because you never know which story will resonate with you most. I would like to share that this episode is brought to you by Tampa Counseling and Wellness, dedicated to helping individuals looking to positively transform their lives through compassionate counseling and wellness coaching. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, call today for a free consultation. therapy that inspires change. And just go ahead and scroll down in the show description to find their website or phone number. Morgan, we had a great time catching up on our another podcast show, That Entrepreneur Show. We got to learn all about her hustle, what went into all the businesses she started, what she's went into, and through her new music, we learned there's some mental health ties. We learned her story. There's a lot of mental health ties, and she's passionate about giving back through that story now, which I admire very much. Morgan Beard, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk from this slightly different angle about my story and what I'm working on.
Yes, you're going to inspire a lot of people. Would you mind giving a quick intro to who Morgan is before we dive into mental health talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, with the bio, I've struggled myself with mental health issues for a couple decades now. I'm 31, and I started identifying as being depressed at 13. So it's been quite a while of ups and downs, and I've always been kind of like the overachiever and hide how I'm feeling type. And so, I excelled academically. I did all these things. I learned how to be a therapist and went to grad school. And now I started a life coaching business. But mental health and maintaining my own mental health is still it's an ongoing thing. It's every single day formed by the choices that I make.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what else can you say?
Comes from the exercise we partake in, to the food and the drinks. I mean, I'm not someone who won't have a slice of pizza if I want a slice of pizza, but I try to be conscious as much as I can of having X amount of good meals during the day, whether it's meal prepping or some juice, water, making sure to avoid soda. I'm someone that doesn't use caffeine a lot. I used to, especially when I was in corporate finance. I would drink it like water. I feel now maybe once or twice a week when I really need to lock in and focus. But you did touch before on a little depression since 13. Would you mind expanding on that for our listeners, try to relate to them in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up for me, I was an only child, and I had parents that were quite a bit older than me and very emotionally disconnected and emotionally immature themselves. I mean, I'm still dealing with the reality of that, as a full grown adult, but that had a huge impact on who I was growing up. And the behaviors that I learned, which I think really contribute to the struggles that I'm facing now, are take care of everyone else before me and put my emotional well-being second, no matter what. And that really translates into these beliefs about my own worthiness. Is it possible for me to be happy? Do I deserve to be happy? Asking all these questions because of, in large part, how was I treated as a young person and regarded by these adults in my life? And so the people that we are kind of cooked in their environment, those voices get baked into who we are and what our brains are dealing with, and the neural pathways that get formed over and over as we then try to individuate from our parents or our caregivers and figure out, well, who am I on my own? And it's a really long process of discovering those things and overthrowing them and making conscious choices to align more and more with whatever is our own authentic truth, rather than just kind of chasing approval or, someone else's emotional well-being.
I think that's something that a lot of people do, especially at a younger age, where we don't really make ourselves happy. We're making decisions maybe for the wrong reasons. I wouldn't say the wrong reasons, but reasons that aren't for us. The most obvious example is probably parents, forming your opinion or decisions in some way. A lot of it was just, you go to college, you get a degree, you do this. And now I'm someone with a finance and an MBA degree. I did have a traumatic brain injury, an accident that changed my outlook on life, but I'm not directly using those degrees in a field. I'm using the tools I learned in those fields, but it just wasn't a path for me. I loved I enjoyed the art of finance. I enjoyed the salary that came with it, but I also was unhappy.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to eventually choose that. Like you mentioned, choosing yourself, stop doing things that don't make you happy. Everyone listening on, I challenge you. But when did you first decide to start making some good for mental health, sharing your story, taking a stance for mental health advocacy?
It's interesting because when I was younger, as I said, like I started to identify that I was struggling, but that wasn't met or accepted by my parents. You know, I
Right.
was in high school and I was saying, hey, like something's wrong, I'm depressed. And I was getting met with, take vitamins, and basically blocked from accessing therapy. And then I, I, I went beyond my mom to her mom and told her how I was feeling. And she was the one who was like, okay, I'll help you. And that, I think, kind of got my mom to sort of have to like confront that. Because I grew up in an environment where they were turning a blind eye to their own issues. So it took me a while to take myself that seriously. And after college, I went into a job that my dad got for me that was something that he thought that I should do. And it always felt like someone else's dream job. So it kind of unfolded in lots of different layers of like trying to pivot and get those things that fit me better. And so I left that job and I went back to grad school and got my master's in art therapy, which got me closer, I think, to what I wanted to do, which was creativity and healing others. But a lot of learning how to be a therapist is really like learning how to deal with your own stuff. And that 2 years was some of the most challenging material of all time. And then, as you said, it was like, it's these really valuable tools that I then use differently than even how I was trained to, because I realized, oh, I don't want to work with the most acutely suffering people. I want to work with, like, the reason I mentioned the nursing home is because that to me was the environment that was the exact opposite of where I needed to be. And my body was telling me, my mental health was telling me, you don't want to work with people who think that the clay is food and try to eat it, or can't talk to you, or can't express themselves. You want to work with people who are really motivated to change the direction of their lives. And that's what I do now. I work with a younger population. I work with an adult population, still ranging from teenagers all the way to people in their 50s, but people that really want to make a pivot and are trying to change their patterns to live a better life. And that desire for change, that desire to be inspired, that feeds me. And when I was in an environment where everyone was dying and being treated like they didn't matter, that couldn't flourish at all.
I have to say there's a ton of takeaways in there. Thank you for the courage to share all of those stories. And I think we'll start in the beginning there, where our parents' generation, it comes up a lot, especially with men, where you're taught to just mask your emotions, walk it off, whatever, don't worry about it, because there wasn't even stigma around it, just didn't exist. Where if you break your finger, what do? You go to the doctor, you rehab, whatever, you get better in 3 weeks. Where if you're having a real tough time, if you take these preventative steps in the beginning, it may not be a lifelong thing if you're able to get out in front of it. But unfortunately, in most institutions, schools even, there's no infrastructure in place to, maybe now there is. I'm sure maybe now as COVID's passed, there's psychologists and things in school. But I know when I was in school, there wasn't really spoken about, mental health. Was it for you?
Nope.
I mean, maybe it was. I don't recall any specific things where they said, hey, this is mental health. This is what you do if you don't feel well. This is how you can get better. But things we do to get better every day is what keeps us in that baseline, like you said, balancing every day. What are some things you do on either a short-term or long-term basis to improve your overall mental health?
So the biggest thing that I advocate for, and I call myself a creative life coach for this reason, and coming from the training as an art therapist, is expression, self-expression, any kind of self-expression, singing, yelling, screaming, writing, painting, drawing. It doesn't really matter. It's getting the thoughts you're having out, or putting yourself into a space where you can externalize some of the feelings and emotions, even if you don't understand them yet, or even if maybe it feels like you're just going around in circles with them.
Yes.
But if you can get them out of your head and onto paper, or dance around and get your heart beating, I mean, really, it can be anything. But I think with depression, it's such an internalized
Yep.
pattern where we're thinking things about ourselves and we're kind of swallowing our emotions. We're keeping things down. And to allow ourselves to have creative output and resisting the temptation to self-judge while we're doing it,
Yes.
that gets the energy spinning the opposite way. Things are coming out. And then if you so choose, you can take a look at a journal page that you wrote or a piece of art that you made, and you now have this objective documentation of how you were feeling in that moment. And you can use that as a tool for further self-discovery.
I really like that. Creativity is something that drastically improves your mental health. It's not something people think of right away. In my book, Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health, Chris Bridge was the amazing illustrator on the project, and she's an amazing visionary. She loves creativity, and me and her started talking more and more, and we included it in the book as a ways for kids to improve their mental health. And one thing we talk about is we have about 60,000 random thoughts per day. You can just shift your mind
Wow.
to a new one really quick. Get creative. Creativity looks different for everybody. Some people it's painting, some people it's drawing, some people it's writing, like myself. I create with words, some create with paints. Great example, Morgan. Is there anything else you would like to share that works for you?
I think the other biggest thing is meditation, and there's really just no way around it. So many people, I get the feedback of like, I can't sit still. I can't do it. My mind never shuts up. And it's really uncomfortable to be confronted with how difficult it is to just sit there and watch your thoughts go by. The exercise isn't to smash them all down and try to have your mind be a blank slate, because that's not really possible.
Yeah.
It's just to give yourself a moment of stillness so that you can again sort of start to redirect that energy and
Yep.
process and digest all the things we're taking in this super information heavy world that we live in.
Yeah, I can relate to what you said in the beginning. In the beginning, had thought it was a magic potion, right? Where I'm going to meditate, boom, feel all good.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I'm just not a 20-minute meditation guy. I know people that can do it for hours. For me, fitness is my real thing. Every morning doesn't have to be just lifting weights because I give my body rest. I'm doing some kind of exercise every single morning, like clockwork, to get my day going. And for me, it's make or break. If I don't get that exercise, I don't feel good all day. I'm overthinking. I'm thinking about things I shouldn't be thinking. I love the meditation recommendation. Is there an app that you can recommend to everybody, or do you do it without?
I think that people can find whatever makes it easiest for them. Like
Mhm.
if you get so caught up on like, well, I can't do it because I don't have an app, you're doing yourself a disservice. But if
Right.
you but if you're like, I can't just sit still and meditate, then go find a YouTube video, go find an app. I have a couple of like MP3s that I just send around
Right.
to people. But really tinker with it, find what works for you, and maybe a movement based type of meditation is your thing, just like you're saying. Like you can do anything with a mindful attitude. So maybe you're doing yoga, or maybe you're going for a walk, or maybe you're going for a jog, but if you just kind of keep bringing your focus back to your breath, how it feels in your body, that's all you need to do. You don't need to overcomplicate it.
Very well said. Let's look into the future right now. I know you have your upcoming EP that sheds some light on mental health. Let's talk about ways you're going to raise awareness.
Yeah. So the EP is called Elemental, and the four songs are fire, water, earth, and air. And the idea is using these natural elements as metaphors for our emotional states and these seasons that we pass through as we evolve. And the story is about going from fire, which talks about a toxic relationship dynamic, particularly a sexual relationship, but it can apply to anything. It can apply to a substance, it can apply to a behavior, it can apply to a parent, whatever. But it's sort of depicting we sometimes ignore ourselves by throwing ourselves into the chemical
Yep.
high of a relationship, or something like
Well
that.
said. Yes. Yep.
Yes. And so it moves through these four elements. So fire to water. Water is when the relationship ends and you're left just with yourself, going through the process of grief, of letting go, of just being with your own emotions and embracing that through crying through emotional release at the most basic level. And then earth is kind of, it's tough, but you build stone by stone and you decide who you want to be. It's just like what I said at the beginning. Like, you make conscious choices and, you mess up sometimes, but at the end of the day, you choose to do it for yourself and you say no to the things that aren't right for you. And air, certainly last but not least, it's that feeling of liberation on the end of a transformative process where you can just allow the past to be the past, worries about future to be the future. And you can just accept, I'm here. I might be alone, but all I really need to have completeness, to have wholeness, is to nurture my relationship with myself.
Say no to the things that aren't right for you. I love that. I really admire the work you're putting in for mental health. And everyone listening on, stick around to the end of the episode so you find out how to stay in touch with Morgan, website, all of that, so you can be ready for the release of Elemental. I think it's now a great time to get into the spotlight story, Morgan. Each week, I share a mental health story with my guests to share with our audience that you are not alone. Just because someone is famous or in the light does not mean they are as healthy on the inside as they seem on the outside. As we have a singer, mental health advocate on the show today, I found a great story on Sia Furler, where there's 5 songs that she really focuses on mental health problems, and I'm excited to get Morgan's take on it. Sia is an Australian singer and songwriter, one of the greatest musicians all over the world, the article describes, and she is a woman of substance who believes in giving it back to society, like our guest, through her creativity. As an artist, she has produced many songs which mainly focus on mental health issues, given that she herself suffered from certain psychological issues in her past. Her songs are based on internal sufferings like OCD, substance addiction, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, and it focuses on motivating others not to lose hope in distressing times. Her songs provide solace, as the article says, to whoever listens to them, especially fans who have mental health issues and can connect with her in a common thread in the first place. One of my goals with this podcast is just that, to hopefully connect with people on a first base level. Let's now go over some of these lyrics. I'll give a piece of the song called Chandelier. This is number 1 on the list. I'm going to swing from the chandelier. I'm going to live like tomorrow doesn't exist, like it doesn't exist. I'm going to fly like a bird through the night. Feel my tears as they dry. I'm going to swing from the chandelier. And I'm holding on for dear life. Won't look down, won't open my eyes. Keep my glass full until morning light, because I'm just holding on for tonight. Help me, I'm holding on for dear life. Won't look down, won't open my eyes. Very, very powerful, but definitely can resonate with many people. And remember, everyone, you are not alone. Morgan, what do you take away from Sia's story?
So I was so thrilled to see that you picked Sia because I absolutely adore her.
Oh, awesome.
I really do. I see her as a huge model for, what I would aspire to career-wise. And just when you were reading her lyrics, I mean, I've heard the song Chandelier a million times and I love it. But even just you reading them point blank, I got chills because I never really focused on the emotional tone of just the words versus the entire kind of picture. And yeah, she has so much richness and power and also vulnerability in her voice in the way that she sings. And, you can hear the cracks and there's strength in the way that she belts and there's all this different stuff. And I mean, we're talking about one of her most popular songs when she kind of was more of a mainstream pop artist. But I actually listened to her a lot years before this song came out when she was less known. And there's just something about her music. It's so feelable. And I think that comes from just, the fact that she's been in all these different states and suffered with all this stuff, you kind of, it can feel really difficult to get through the things that she's been through and to be in such a raw state. But just hearing you reread those lyrics that I've heard 1,000 times, it re-inspires me and reminds me that it's not about like being perfect, like writing the perfect song or singing it vocally perfectly. It's about hitting on real emotion and connecting to the human experience. Yeah, she's just freaking brilliant.
I'm really happy that I found someone that resonated with you. As the show, I share this often. In the beginning of the show, I would just pick a mental health story. I would Google mental health celebrities, is literally what I did. And I would get all these stories, but they didn't always resonate. Like I have a guest say, oh, I don't know that story, but this. So then eventually it clicked like, okay, why don't I just find someone in the industry or the same state or the same gen, something to resonate with my listener. I'm glad we got such a great analysis from you on this article. Thank you for inspiring us this entire episode, Morgan. Right from the beginning, you said a lot of factors are involved in our mental health, and that's something we need to be aware of because we can make small decisions that lead to big results for us as far as productivity and happiness. You had the courage to share your story about with your parents because there are a lot of people out there who may be exactly in those shoes, and your set testimonial may help them put a smile on their face and move in the right direction. You recognize to do things that make you happy, recognize the areas that you don't want to be in, and move on. So much inspiration, Morgan. Please tell everybody where we can find you, whether it's your website, social media, the music.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have sort of my coaching website and my music website. And although I see those things as very much part of the same vehicle of healing and change, if you want to follow me with music, that would be I Am Money, IAMMUUNIE. And that's my social media handle, and also my website, iammoney.com. And for coaching, that's morganbeard.coach.
Morganbeard.coach, IAMMUUNIE.com for Morgan's music and so much more. Thank you so much for coming on once again. Everyone listening on, we are at a mental health break on all social media, except because of the character limit on Twitter. We are at Podcasts by Lancey. Of course, I am at Vincent A. Lancey on YouTube, all social media, and my website is vincentalancey.com. Mental Health Week is live on Amazon. Be sure to check it out for the elementary school students in your lives. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next Tuesday on a mental health break. Morgan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vincent.